Welcome back, friends. I'm so happy to be back with you for a second season of A Culture of Inspiration. I'm your host, Sarah Brown, co-owner of Counterculture DIY and your inside source for all things resin art. And this season, I'll be introducing you to a variety of individuals from varied backgrounds to discuss all different kinds of topics that I think will inspire you in your artistry. From social media branding to handling difficult clients, I've picked topics that are tailored to you as an artist, and I can't wait to share. So what are we waiting for? Let's jump right on in and get creative. Sometimes you meet somebody and you instantly recognize them as a kindred spirit, and that is how I felt when I met Ashley Lee. And the first time I really got to know her is kind of a funny story. I had done a tutorial in our artist support group on how to make silicone molds using real cookies. And if you haven't watched that tutorial, you really should, because it was pretty epic. But anyway, I did this tutorial and I made my silicone molds, and how I kept the mold from just spreading everywhere when I poured the silicone was I used like water bottles that I'd cut up and like a sandwich plastic container to make kind of a border around the mold. Well, anyway, Ashley Lee, who makes things like mold housings and all kinds of supplies to help crafters, watched this, and she must have been horrified by my hillbilly setup using cut up water bottles and old sandwich containers. And she sent me a Facebook message later that night and said, "I watched your live and I was wondering if I could send you some mold housings." I guess she felt like she had to save me from myself. A beautiful friendship was born out of that, and I also scored a few really cool mold housings from her business. But over the time that I've known Ashley since then, I have seen what a heart she has for helping people through her business and how her business has grown and thrived. So when I decided I wanted to do an episode about being a total girl boss, I decided that Ashley Lee was our person that we needed to interview today. So we're going to talk about her business, Craft Crate, and how she's grown that from just being a hobbyist crafter into supplying and providing items for other crafters, how she went through a pretty major rebranding of her business, and how she manages to partner with her husband and them not drive each other crazy. So let's jump right in with Ashley. I think you're really going to love what she has to share today. Well, hi, Ashley. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I am so glad you're here, and I'm so excited for our conversation today. I'm so excited you're here, and I'm so excited for our conversation today. But for anybody who doesn't already know you, why don't you introduce yourself and just tell about what life's like for you and where you are in the crafting community?
Yeah, definitely. Well, my name is Ashley, so I am the owner of Craft Crate, formerly Truly Divinal. I am a mom to a little rebellious toddler. She's 3. She's, of course, my whole world. My husband and I have been together for almost 14 years now, and I've been in the crafting side of the business for about almost 5 years now. But I've been, crafting in general since I was like 10 years old.
Well, how did you get into the resin art and tumbler making craft world?
So I've always been, into painting and like the wood kind of crafting and all that. And then the tumblers, that kind of only recently started about pretty much when we started the retail side of our business about 4 years ago. So my first ever tumbler, thank goodness there is not a picture of that saved somewhere for.
I think we all feel that way.
Yep. That actually was about 4 years ago. And then how it started. So I think we were at Walmart, I want to say it was, and I saw, they had the blank stainless steel tumblers, and I was like, man, I bet those would look really cool with something on it. So I thought, well, maybe, why not try and paint it? So my first ever tumbler that I did was actually, I literally just took acrylic paint and I brushed it on the tumbler. Obviously, it did not hold up. So I started doing some research and I found a couple of like tumbler making groups. And I had that, at that point, I realized that there were actually a good amount of crafting groups out there. I hadn't realized that Facebook offered that kind of opportunity. So the more that I joined and the more that I learned, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's actually a business that can be made out of this. There's so many possibilities that I had no idea. So that kind of kickstarted it.
And that was, 4 years ago. That seems really recent, but in tumbler making time, that was kind of at the beginning. That's when tumblers were still kind of in their infancy as far as people going berserk and decorating every tumbler in sight. So you're one of the OGs.
Well, I like to think it sometimes, but I don't know. It's crazy if you think about, 4 years ago at the time, it had seemed like, wow, there's so much out there. But compared to now, it's crazy all the different stuff that you can do and what the possibilities are now. I would have never have dreamt it if you asked me 4 years ago where it was going to lead me to now. I would have never have guessed it.
I wouldn't have either, because when we started marketing our products to artists, it was this huge bombshell to me that people used resin on tumblers.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, we might get a little bit of business from that, never dreaming we would end up having this huge amount of business from tumbler makers and that it would become such an art form.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like even to call tumblers a craft is almost not giving it enough credit. Some of these tumblers that people make are like truly fine art.
It really is. I agree.
So you got into tumbler making. When did you start doing that as more than just a hobby, like a side hustle or business? When did that start to monetize for you?
Well, it's kind of funny the way that it worked. So I got into it about 4 years ago. My daughter is 3. So really, I was still pretty like relatively new to crafting and like the tumbler side of things right before I became pregnant. So I was working full time. I worked up until I was 8 months pregnant. So I really, the time that I had was so limited. And then I stopped doing the epoxy side of things while I was pregnant. So that kind of put a damper on it too. But I still, I felt that pull for the creative side of me trying to do something else. So I was trying to find every other kind of craft project I could do without necessarily using the epoxy while I was pregnant. So then I had my daughter and I was like, that's it. I'm going back to the epoxy game. I missed it. It's been too long. And so when I started, it was about maybe like 5 or 6 months. I had got back into it and I was getting the hang of things and getting back into making the tumblers. And then we realized that there was a market for tumbler makers. I'd had grown since I was out of the game for a while and we came back and now it was becoming more popular. And I was like, well, there's other tumbler makers. So, why not bring that business side into what I do so I can still craft and sell my tumblers, but share other creations to help other artists out. And so then it kind of just took us by a whirlwind and it was crazy fast how everything happened. We had the business Truly Divinal and I was just selling keychains, cups here and there. I didn't do any local crafts. And then we started coming up with our other products and to help tumbler makers. And then it took off in a matter of 2 months. And I was like, oh my goodness, we're going to need some help.
Our business kind of did the same thing. It was like once it caught on big.
Yeah.
It felt like overnight. It definitely wasn't. It was a lot of work and progress to get to the point where it caught on. But I heard of this singer artist back in the 80s, and he had been working in clubs and stuff for like 25 years. And then he had a number one hit song and no one had ever heard of him. And it said he had worked for 25 years to become an overnight sensation. And that was kind of how I felt like we were.
Exactly. Oh, it spreads like a wildfire, I tell you.
Yes. And things in the Tumblr community really do go viral so fast. It's like
Hmm.
one person posts one picture of something they did, and suddenly it's like not even enough time for the epoxy to dry. And there are 20,000 copies of that cup. And, if one person says something works, then it's like people can't hit add to cart fast enough to try it for themselves. Things spread so quickly. It's such a generous and sharing community for the most part. And so I think that really does help businesses grow and be able to come out with new products because people support it. They want to try it all.
Oh, yeah. It was like with the pens recently, there was a couple of pens being posted, and then we're like, okay, well, we need to do a product for that. I want to get into the pens. Of course, me being me, I try every single craft project available. Not saying that I finish all of them, but I definitely start them.
Yep, I'm guilty of that.
Oh my gosh, I have so many projects. It's we won't even get into that. That'll be a whole hour talking about the projects. But yeah, so we were like, okay, well, we need to make a product for that. I want to try it. So we did. We came out with our pen attachment, tested it out, made sure that it was going to work the way we wanted. We were happy with it. We released it, and I kid you not, we were swamped with orders for 2 months straight. We were down here every night till 1 a.m. making the pens, putting everything together, packing the boxes for 2 months straight. I mean, we were at that point running on pure caffeine, I'm pretty sure. But it's just crazy how quick the trends come and they go and then they come back.
Well, what was the first thing? I know you said you decided you were going to make some products to help out other tumbler makers. What was the first thing that you were like, this is the thing that I need to make that people are going to go for that will help other people?
So the very first product that we offered is our cup chucks. So it goes inside your cup to replace those little foam footballs or like the little foam noodles that, you can use. And at the time, there weren't really any other options. You were going to the dollar store and you were getting the foam footballs, and they would last kind of okay, but you would always hope and pray that it wouldn't fall off in the middle. Turn around and it's stuck to your carpet. We've all been there, guaranteed.
Yep.
So we're like, okay, this just is not going to work. We need something better. And so my husband had recently bought a 3D printer. And so that kind of kickstarted everything. And we're like, what are the possibilities with this 3D printer? And at that point, like I was saying, there really wasn't much on the market for that. So we're like, okay, well, let's see if people are interested in that. And sure enough, it, like you said, like wildfire, it just took off. And of course, there was so many different size churners that everyone was using. So there was rotisserie rod, there was, 3/4 inch PVC, 1/2 inch PVC. So we had to kind of cater to what everyone was wanting to make it fair for everyone at that time. So definitely a lot of work for us. But I mean, in the end, it came out with an awesome product and people are still loving it to this day, 4 years later. So we're doing something right.
Yeah, you definitely are. Tell me this, whenever you decided, okay, we've got this item, we've got these cup chucks and other things too, but this is what we need to do. We need to put these out there for the world. How hard was it to take that plunge? Like to go from someone just making cups yourself to launching a business and 3D printing a million different styles of cup chucks and hoping that people would buy them?
It is definitely, and it still is a lot. I mean, I was, at the time I wasn't working, I was still a stay-at-home mom. So of course my time went to her most of the time, and then come down to the craft room during naps and be like, okay, am I going to work on creating a tumbler, or am I going to work on new designs for selling a different product to help other crafters? So it was kind of hard to manage and separate the two. But in the end, it kind of worked out either way, because for me, I love creating. It's not necessarily about the selling for me. So the fact that I could create a tumbler or a cup and be like, hey, here's the tumbler. It's totally for sale. But if you want to learn how to make it, I can show you how to make it. And here's our tools that will help you make it. So it was mostly about being able to help other artists and show them what they can do. So, because obviously there's plenty enough people to sell tumblers to. I know I could not personally sell tumblers to every single maker out there. So it was really just about giving back to the community that helped me get into the crafts in the first place.
That is one of several reasons that I wanted to have you on this podcast, because you do have such a big heart and you are such a giving person. You've given stuff to me. I love your heart and how you love to share, and you have such a kind spirit. So I knew that that was going to come up in something that you said, because you're a giver and you are someone that I think that it shows in your business. I think when people do business with you and when I see you interacting with people online, you have such a sparkle about you. And I know that that is one reason why people love to do business with you. And I think it's definitely a reason for your success too. So I just have to throw that in there.
Well, thank you. You're going to make me tear up over here. That's really sweet. And the sparkle is definitely because 98% of the time I'm covered in glitter. So
that just adds to it, because it's coming from within. Yeah. It's coming from within, Ashley.
Oh, thanks, Sarah.
Well, tell me about something that people would never guess is super hard about running a business that caters to the crafting community.
So one thing that I think a lot of people don't account for is how many variations there is. And even like you see a 20-ounce tumbler and you think, okay, well, they're all the same. So something that you make should fit inside every 20-ounce tumbler. Well, I will tell you that is not the case. And thank goodness, I have to give my husband support here, because if it was not for him, this business would definitely not be where it is, because I cannot do math. He saved my life. So if you guys are getting cup checks for just me taking the measurements, it probably would not fit any cup. I promise you guys. There's so many little things that go into creating all of our products, because all of our products are all designed and handmade by us. So not only do we have to take the time to design and measure and make sure everything fits, but my husband and myself are both 100% perfectionists. So we're never going to send out something that's like, well, this might work, but it, will probably break. It's just not us. So the amount of time that we take to actually design and test and then retest and make sure that everything fits like perfectly, I couldn't even tell you the amount of hours that we've put into just designing alone. It's not, it is, I guess it is a struggle, but, we bear through it. It's just something that other people, I guess, don't really think about right often.
Definitely. We run into that with our business too. And it sounds like you and your husband have a very similar dynamic to Barry and me, where I'm like big picture person. I just come up with ideas and I'm like, Barry, let's do this. And he's much more detail oriented, where he starts immediately calculating what it would cost to make it, how many variations there would have to be. And he looks at me and says, "You're insane. No, we're not going to do that."
Well, I'm pretty sure those exact words have come out of my husband's mouth a few times.
So yes, like as you were telling that about your husband doing the math and stuff, that definitely sounds like Barry and me. So I always say he's the Debbie Downer, but really it's not. He's more down to earth is a better description for him, because he deals with much more detail of the business than I do. I just get to say, let's do this, and then give him a hard time when he tells me that it's physically impossible, financially impossible.
Yep, exactly. We're the exact same way. I'll say, okay, but I think, especially because, with the 3D printing, a lot of it is you have to take your idea and you have to make it 3D. My brain does not work that way. So I'll tell him something else, but can't you just, make it like that? And he'll say, "Oh, it doesn't work like that." And I was like, "Well, are you sure? Let me draw a picture, because I'm pretty sure."
Because I've imagined this thing in my mind. And even though it's not something that exists right now, I'm totally sure it could be a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we have conversations like that at our house too. And I'm not as involved with the formulation of products and stuff. I just throw out these absurd ideas sometimes. And once in a while, one will stick and Barry will say, maybe that is possible. Usually I get the "you're insane" response. But
But hey, at least one of those ideas worked. See, that's what they keep us around for. We got to keep giving them ideas, and eventually one will be, the great one.
One's going to be the $1 million idea. I know it.
Yep, that's what I keep telling them. I say, just you wait. One of these ideas I say, I'm going to take it to somebody else that'll tell me they can do it.
That's right. You can keep telling me no if you want. Well, Ashley, tell me about your craft crates. I want to talk a little bit more about going to the rebranding here in a minute, but just tell me how the craft crates came out of this. So you were doing your cup chucks. I know you were doing, mold housings, and you'd come up with all these neat products that just cater to people who love resin art. And then all of a sudden, and I say this tongue in cheek, all of a sudden, I know there was a ton of research and all that went into it, but all of a sudden you had subscription boxes, and they are phenomenal, and they have some of our stuff in them. It's how I knew about them. Tell everybody where that came from. How did you go from selling, your individual products to putting together your craft crates?
Well, started with back to the basics of my tumbler making, actually. So I mentioned earlier that I don't go to local craft fairs, and I don't typically advertise any of my tumblers for sale. Well, after having like 600 different cups sitting on my shelves, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to do something with these. And I had the idea for about 2 years, but I couldn't, there was so much research that went into, well, what could I include that people would enjoy? Are my tutorials good enough? Am I a good enough artist that people would want to pay for something that I teach? I've always had the teacher personality, I guess. I love to teach. It was part of my job for so long, and it's always been something that's kind of, I guess, ingrained with me. And so when I started picking up and doing my tutorials more often, I thought, well, here's an idea. I can give them everything that they need to make this tumbler with me. Because I know I personally, and I know a lot of other crafters, go through spouts where you get your creativity is low, you're just not sure, you can't think of an idea. So I figured my tutorials are they're out there. I guess they're a little bit different than most of what's on the market. So why not teach them and show them how to make this cup and give them some of that creativity back? Now, obviously, I don't want everyone to go having to spend hundreds of dollars to get into a craft or start a craft that maybe they don't continue or plan to continue down the road. So with my crates, I thought, well, sample sizes and smaller products, that way they can try it out. Follow my tutorial. I'll show you exactly what to do so you know if you want to continue it. And a lot of these other tumbler makers, whether you're new or advanced, may not have tried a specific product or may have been wanting to try a specific product that's in the tutorials and they don't know how to use it. So I've been trying to branch out as much as I can and introduce new and advanced tumbler makers to kind of get out there and try those products and show them ways that they can use it. It's just pure fun for me because I get to teach these people and give them the supplies that they need and kind of bring them out of their comfort zone. And shoot, I'm doing the same thing for myself. Some of the tutorials I'm doing, it's have an idea in mind and I'll film it. And there we go. That'll be the first time I've tried it too. So they're learning right along with me.
I interviewed Misty Leonard a couple of weeks ago, and that was something that you have in common with her. As her business and just her journey evolved, she started out very similar, had a tumbler in her cabinet that she thought was ugly and wanted to do something to it. And then it evolved into people saying, hey, you want to sell those? And then now she doesn't really even sell her tumblers anymore because it reached the point that people were asking her to teach them. And she found that was the thing that she loved the most, more than anything, more than making 150 of the same tumbler to put in an Etsy shop. She loved to figure out something new that nobody's done and then teaching it to other people. And I see that over and over, and I've said it multiple times on this podcast, but I think the people who are the most successful in this particular community of artists are the people who want to share. It's not the people who figure out something great and keep it to themselves, because your hands can only physically make so many of that tumbler. Even if you're the only person who knows how to do it, you only have 24 hours in a day.
Right.
But if you can turn that into a teaching moment, or, a tutorial, or Misty's got her Patreon group, so she makes money from people wanting to learn from her because she's a great teacher. And I think that is such a great way to share what's inside of you. Like you said, that's just an aspect of your personality. Misty found that was an aspect of her personality. And I don't know that she even really knew that until she started doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the people that I see that have so much success, it's because they love to share, and they share that with other people. Because if you keep all that information to yourself and you make 150 tumblers, first of all, that's going to take you forever. And second of all, you're going to burn yourself out on it anyway, right? Like after you've made 150 of the same tumbler, you're going to say, I never want to do this style again.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's something that I love about being part of the resin art community and the tumbler making community. And certainly not everybody, and I speak in generalities, not everybody in our community loves to share, and that's okay for them if that's not their thing. But there are so many people who do. And I think that's what drives the positivity of the community and what continues to draw new people in, that they can just search on YouTube, go online, join groups, look for tutorials, join a mentorship group, order a craft crate, and they can learn. It's not rocket science. It's not a bunch of people who are amazing at something and only they possess that knowledge. So I love that about this community. And I love that you continue to put that out there and foster that environment.
I do too. I mean, without the community, I wouldn't be into crafting. I have had nothing but support from everyone in all of the different craft groups, especially counterculture. Your group has been huge for me. And anytime that I had questions, because of course I was a beginner at one point too, I would be surrounded with nothing but love and support, and everyone always so willing to help. So when I got to a place where I knew and I felt that I could do the same, I had to. I mean, I love creating and I love being able to share my ideas. And I know there's people, of course, that sell tumblers and everything for their business. And I think that's totally awesome. That helps my job as well, too. But for me, when I was taking custom orders constantly and just doing that, like you said, I got so burnt out. Custom orders, you can only do so many times before you're like, this is becoming more of a job and it's making me not enjoy it. Then what I want it to be is more of like a hobby where I can enjoy it. Because, crafting is definitely a stress relief, 100%. Packing crates, on the other hand, maybe not so much, but doing the tutorials, 100%. So it is a relief for me, like a stress reliever. And I love that I can just be myself and be able to teach and share my ideas with other people. And the fact that the other people are appreciating it and they're showing their support for me, I can't even describe it, how it makes me feel. It's just so crazy to me still to this day.
I know. It's crazy to me too, because even 5 years ago, anyone would have told me that we would be where we are at with our business. I wouldn't have believed them. I don't think I would have believed them, because our business started with Barry doing countertops and somehow evolved into what it is now. So it was just the right time and a lot of hard work and a lot of really good people supporting it. And, you said how our group had been such a great resource. And I remember when Barry started the group, and I didn't really know anything about Facebook groups. And it's been a few years ago, and Facebook groups weren't really what they are now.
Mm-hmm.
And he was answering, I don't know if it would be an exaggeration to say hundreds of emails and messages, definitely hundreds a week, maybe not hundreds a day, dozens a day and hundreds a week. And he was exhausted and he was answering the same questions over and over.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to just make a group where people can ask their questions in the group and other people can answer the questions for them. And I remember thinking, that sounds like a terrible idea for a group. I I feel so stupid now for thinking that, but I thought nobody's going to answer other people's questions. They're not going to hang out in a group that you created and answer other people's questions for you. I thought that was so silly. Now looking back, I feel so silly for not thinking that that was the best idea he ever came up with. But he was just like, I just cannot continue to answer 100 emails a day about this one question. But I thought nobody's going to help other people in a group like that. And I was so wrong. I am so happy that I was dead wrong, thrilled to admit that I was dead wrong and that Barry had the best idea about doing that. And now that's pretty common. And maybe I know he wasn't the first person to ever come up with that, but other companies I've seen kind of fall into the same line of, they start this artist support group to do the same thing. And probably for the same reason, because the poor owner is sitting at dinner with his phone pinging with 100 questions. So it was a genius idea that I totally did not get at the time, but
all right. Well, 1 point goes to Barry for the idea this time.
1 point and only one.
Don't worry. We can edit the part where you said you were wrong. I'll pretend I never heard it.
Okay. Yeah, it's between us.
Okay, deal.
The last thing that I was kind of thinking about, we talked about how you got into doing your craft crates, and then after you'd been doing those for a while, you totally rebranded your business. So why don't you share what went into that, why you made that decision, how it's been going? Because that is a super scary thing to do. And we talked offline about that I've seen other people say, I'm looking at maybe rebranding my business, but I'm terrified to do it. Will I lose my customers? So why don't you just share what that looked like for you? Because to my eyes, it looks like you've been really successful with it.
Well, thank you. That was most definitely one of the most nerve-wracking decisions I think we've made business-wise ever, because we had grown such a following with our name. And I thought, well, we created Truly Divinyl when I was still doing like the vinyl projects. And I was like, oh, this is a cute name. All right, I gotta.
And it was. I loved it.
Thank you. But people kept getting confused and they're like, you would not believe the amount of messages that I got that said, do you sell vinyl? So after feeling pretty dumb, after being like, no, I know it's in the name, but we actually do not sell vinyl. When we created our craft crates, I'm like thinking about it and thinking on like a new name change, because I knew I had wanted to change it at some point. And then we created the craft crates and I was like, well, how about we just name our business Craft Crate? Because that's essentially what all of our packages are. Every box that you get from us is essentially a craft crate, with our tools and supplies in it. And I am most definitely the spontaneous one between my husband and myself. So me being me, I'm like, okay, I'll create a new website. I'll buy the domain. Easy peasy, done. My husband's like, are you sure that's a good idea? Don't you want to think on it? I had already bought the domain. No, I don't want to think on it.
No, that's insane.
Yeah. Who puts thought into that? No way. Now, down the line, it took me like 6 months to build the new website. And at that point, I had already started working on a new website. So that was already in the works. The amount of little things that go into rebranding, you would never even think about. All of your business accounts, all of your PayPal's tied to it, your shipping invoices. There's so many little things that go into it that you just don't think about. Then, of course, you have to register your domain with that name and then all of your DBAs. So there's definitely a lot that goes into it that I did not realize at the time when I said, let's just do it. And then, of course, the worry of, well, we've gotten all of these followers that recognize their name. What if when we change, they're like, oh my goodness, who is this new company? Like, where's Truly Divinyl? So it was definitely scary and nerve-wracking, but I am so glad that we made the change, because I feel like our new name just represents us so much better. It's so easy to identify, you know exactly what you're getting, and I'm so happy that I did it. And truthfully, it wasn't really as bad as I thought it was going to be, with people still referring to us as our old name. definitely a lot of changing in like the Facebook settings and the Instagram, all the social account settings. So there was that, but overall, no, I'm really happy that we made the change, and I'm definitely glad that my spontaneous side won for once. It worked out. For any new artists out there that are considering it, I do definitely recommend doing it. Obviously, sooner than later is the best, but if you feel like your name just isn't representing yourself anymore, then I say go for it. My spontaneous side talking again, but I really do think that it's definitely something that I would recommend doing if you feel that your business name just isn't supporting or showing what you represent.
So as you were saying that, that made me think about what about when people tag you like on Facebook or Instagram or wherever, if they tag Truly Divinal, does it still link to you?
Technically, it does because Facebook being Facebook, even though I have updated it like 10 times now, my Facebook page name is still under Truly Divinal, even though it's technically changed to Craft Crate. So theoretically, when people search either, it's still pulling up with me. I don't think that's how it's supposed to work, but I'm not telling I'm not telling Facebook that.
That's weird. Yeah.
I know sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I swear with Facebook, you never know. But I changed all of the settings and I clicked it 10 times to make sure that the new URL was going to have Craft Crate. So when people searched, it was still in there. Every time that I go to share it, it still says Truly Divinal. I'm like, oh, geez, here we go again. So there's definitely been some transition, or, I guess there could be tons of customers that I don't know about that are like, what happened to Truly Divinal? But I tried to announce it in so many places, everywhere that I could. And I told everyone that I know, make sure you tell everybody anytime you refer us, it's Craft Crate, Craft Crate. But I think putting the formally Truly Divinal in the group really helped too, because that way when people are searching, they still know that it's us. It's not an imposter.
Yes, I think that helps too. I mean, it helped me. And then also, I thought that you did a really good job leading up to it. Was it right around the first of the year that you changed?
Yeah.
And right before you made some posts like there are big things coming, and you really led up to it and you were like, watch for the big announcement. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat. What are they going to be doing? And so I thought you did that really well. And I think that would be some advice for anyone. If you are thinking about, rebranding, changing your name, give people a little bit of runway there, prepare them, because we are humans. We don't like change, right?
Yeah.
And there are people who don't get on social media every day, or if they do, they're not necessarily checking your page every day. And so giving them a little bit of time to see that beforehand, instead of just January 1st, you make an announcement like, hey, we have a new name, and they haven't been on social media since, the day after Christmas, and then they don't get on again until January 8th. And it's like everything they knew about you is gone. So I felt like you did a really good job about that, of kind of prepping people like me who didn't know what you had up your sleeve. And then when you announced it, I felt like you did a really great job announcing it. And then you still have it where it says like formally Truly Divinal.
Yeah.
So I felt like all of that was very smart in making it pretty seamless. I know we changed the name of a product or two of ours, and it's been probably a year since we changed the name, and people still call it by the old name.
It's the name. It sticks. Like sometimes it's catchy. I feel like our name, constantly people were spelling it wrong. So I feel like now people are like, okay, we got this one.
Yeah.
Not gonna mess it
up. Vinyl is a hard word. I think vinyl is one of the hardest words. So
that, and you throw a D in it and it throws everyone off. I tried to make as many like announcements and warn everyone in advance, so it wasn't just a surprise, and then kind of throw that in with a new website and in the beginning of the year. And so we tried to time everything that way, so it wasn't just surprise, we're a new name, new company now.
Yeah, everything you knew before is gone. Yeah, you did a really good job with that, and definitely have to hand it to you. And that was just another reason why I thought you would be such a great guest on our podcast, because I feel like you did this rebranding so successfully, and it seemed very thoughtful. So it wasn't just a, hey, we changed our name, guys, deal with it.
Surprise.
Yeah. You eased us into it. I know we've covered quite a few things about being a female entrepreneur, family business. I feel like you and I have so much in common with that. What else do you think people need to know about you or about your business or your products before we close out today?
Well, like I mentioned with the craft crates, for any new or even an advanced tumbler maker or even just crafts, our craft crates, we've been branching out. We've been doing something other than tumblers because, like I mentioned earlier, me and my craft projects, I have, there isn't very much that I don't do. And if there's something new, we already know I'm going to try it. For anyone looking to kind of get into that, but you're not quite sure where to start, that's where our craft crates really come in handy because I'm providing you with products that you may not know how to use or you may not have tried, but you're wanting to try. And then I'm also showing you how you're going to use them. And I don't know, I think some of the stuff I make is pretty cute, not to toot my own horn, but
you can totally toot your own horn. Your stuff is great.
Oh, well, thanks, Sarah.
The crates, I am always loving when the crates come out. Like I always know when people start getting them because they start sharing them in our group. And I'm always like, oh man, I want to make that too.
I cannot wait to see what you make with the crate. I'm so excited to see your project with it.
I know. So Ashley sent me a couple of projects from the crates and I have them on my craft table and I got them out the other night to start them. And my craft table was so messy, I literally could not craft on it. So
yes, that's my current situation.
Still remain to be finished, but I'll share those in the group as soon as I actually sit down and do them. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for joining us today. And I know everyone's going to love to hear from you. If they don't already follow you and Craft Crate, I know they're going to want to. So we'll make sure that we include all the links in the show notes so that you can click on her website and see all the things that she sells and get up to date on the Craft Crate subscriptions. And then definitely follow her in our group because she posts a lot in there and she's always just a bright light and sparkly, not just because she has glitter all over her. So we will talk to you all soon. And thank you so much, Ashley.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed the episode and took something away from it that you can use. If you loved the show, be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app, and I'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review. It's important to me to create content that's relevant, educational, and inspiring, so feel free to reach out to me with suggestions. I'm on all the socials at Counterculture DIY. And if you're not already a member of our Facebook Counterculture DIY Artist Support Group, I'd love to connect with you in there too. We have a lot of fun.